Jesus entered Jericho. He was passing through it. A man was there named Zacchaeus. He was the chief tax collector, and he was rich. He was trying to see who Jesus was, but on account of the crowd, he could not. Because he was short in stature, he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore tree to see him, because he was going past that way. When Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said, "Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house." So he hurried down and was happy to welcome him. All who saw him began to grumble and said, He has gone to be a guest of one who is a sinner." Zacchaeus stood there and said to the Lord, "Look, half my possessions, Lord, I will give to the poor, and if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I will pay back 4 times as much." Then Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because he is the son of Abraham. For the Son of a Man who came to seek out and to save the lost."
When I was younger, I used to love climbing up into trees to play and to build tree forts and to play games with my friends and see just how high I could get up in a tree where the branches get thinner and thinner and the tree starts to sway in the wind a little bit. It was always this exciting kind of thrill, a lot of fun just to be there and to play. And I also liked this aspect of being up in a tree that made you feel kind of invisible. Where if you're up in a tree, especially up in the foliage and the leaves, you can look down and you can see the world around you, but almost nobody walking by or out on the sidewalk ever looks up in the tree to see what might be there. You get this sense you can watch the world go by and no one can ever see you or know that you're even there. As I was reading through the Zacchaeus story again today for this sermon and in this gospel reading, I was struck by that memory. That memory of being up in a tree and watching the world go by and not having to worry about someone seeing you or knowing where you are. And I wonder if that was what was on Zacchaeus' mind that day when Jesus was going to be walking by and he decided to climb up into that tree. I wonder if he knew in some way, shape, or form that he wasn't like the rest of the people in the crowd, that he didn't really think he deserved to be there with everyone else down at ground level where Jesus might see them. And so instead, he climbs up into this tree and he watches all the crowd gathered around. He watches as Jesus, this kind of fabled person that he's heard about, that he's wondered about, that he has this question, this spark of imagination about come down. But you see, Jesus isn't like most other people. Jesus does something really remarkable in this story. Jesus looks up. Jesus looks up and sees Zacchaeus up in that tree. I'd go so far to say that in and of itself is a small miracle. Now, we're used to talking about miracles with Jesus, and we think about things like turning water into wine, or healing someone who is dead or dying or very sick, or even walking on the waters of a sea. But this, I think, is also a miracle, because Jesus, again and again, performs this miracle of seeing people who are invisible to everyone else. Jesus performs this miracle of seeing the people on the edges and the margins of society. In fact, Jesus does this same miracle again and again and again. Jesus sees the woman at the well whom the whole society won't even talk to. Jesus sees the people who are struggling with demons and mental illness on the outskirts of society. Jesus sees the woman who reaches out just to touch Jesus' cloak in the middle of a crowd that's surrounding him. Again and again, Jesus sees those people on the very edges of society, people who are invisible to the rest of us. And in this story, Jesus looks up into this tree and sees Zacchaeus, this person who thought he might have been invisible, hiding back in that tree, who was watching Jesus go by, who just was on the very edge, on the very periphery of this story. until Jesus performs this miracle of seeing and sees Zacchaeus up in that tree and calls him down, doing what Jesus does again and again, taking those people on the edges of society, on the edge of the story, and saying that you are a part of this story now. Jesus calls Zacchaeus down, takes him, and goes with him to his house. And in that meal, in that dinner together, Zacchaeus is changed forever. Zacchaeus, by his own admission, was cheating people, was not living fairly, was greedy, was hoarding money. And throughout that time, that experience of being seen changes him. Zacchaeus may have only wanted to be on the very edge just to catch a glimpse of Jesus from a distance. But Jesus said no. Jesus said, no, this thing that God is doing in the world right now is not something you can watch from a distance. It's something that happens inside of you. It's something that happens in your home. It's something that happens right here and right now. And the miracle Jesus performs again and again is finding and seeing those people on the very edges. Those people whose lives are unraveled. Those people who are broken, those people who don't think they're worthy to even come close enough to Jesus. Jesus sees them each and every time, pulls them in, and says, this story, this thing that God is doing right now, this is for you. And nothing will ever be the same again. Now, I don't know about you, but it can feel like in this time that our lives are pretty broken and unraveled, and it might seem really nice, especially when it comes to church or our faith, to spend some time away up in a tree where we don't have to worry about too many things, where we can watch the world go by. And maybe later we'll come down from the tree and we'll see what God has in store for us. But the news that we get today, the news that comes to us through this story, is that if you feel like you're on the edge, if you feel like you don't deserve it, if you feel like you don't have time, if you feel like you're just barely connected, if at all, to what God is doing right now, well then get ready. Because God is at work in this world. God is at work performing miracles. We might not see water turn into wine most days or people walking across Lake Michigan, but the miracle that God keeps doing again and again and again is the one we see in this story. The miracle of Jesus looking out into the world, seeing the people who are invisible, seeing the people who are on their last nerve, seeing the people who don't know which way to go, seeing the people who just can't hold it together anymore. God is still doing this miracle. God is still working in us and through us. God is still at work, taking us from the very margins and edges of society, from the very edges of our lives, and pulling us in, turning us inside out and upside down, and giving us a new glimpse of the world. Sitting with us for a meal and changing our lives one moment and one conversation at a time. This is how God works in the world. So if you feel like you don't have any more in you, that you can't hold it together, that you've been gone from church too long, that you barely feel connected to anyone or anything, let alone a whole group of people in a church or in a community, well, be careful, because God is out there. God is working through people and places we never imagined and changing lives right here and right now. Wherever you find yourself this week, whatever might be going on in your life, whatever pressure or intense things are happening around you, I hope that you know that God is still with us, that God is still walking along beside us, that each and every road that lies outside of our window has a Jesus walking down it, looking all around for each of us, to call us in, to bring us home, and to change our lives. Are you ready? Amen.